You say you want real love, the kind that makes your chest rise with hope and your eyes soften with trust, the kind that feels like home in someone else's presence. But just when it's about to arrive, you retreat. You smile politely, pull back slightly, and something inside you says, "Don't go any further." You don't mean to run, but it's instinctual, almost primal, a tightening in the gut, a whisper in your mind that love equals danger. It doesn't matter how kind or honest the person is, the part of you that's been hurt before rises to protect you. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So many of your patterns aren't you. They're echoes of childhood wounds, of moments when love was withheld or weaponized or given and suddenly taken away. You think you're rejecting them, but you're really trying to survive a memory. It's a strange thing to desire love and fear it at the same time. You want to be seen, but the thought of someone seeing everything, your fears, your scars, the parts of you that still tremble, feels unbearable. You want to rest in someone's arms, but your mind races with everything that could go wrong. Sometimes you rehearse rejection in your mind before it even happens. You imagine them leaving. You imagine them loving someone else. You imagine the silence after the goodbye, and so you prepare for it by leaving first. Not physically, emotionally. Slowly, subtly, you shut the door. There's a certain comfort in staying guarded. It's cold, but it's predictable. You've lived behind emotional glass for so long that you start to believe this is just who you are. You tell yourself you're too much or not enough, too sensitive, too complicated, too broken. So you silence your need for closeness in the name of strength. But deep down you crave it. You long for someone to notice the way your voice softens when you talk about your dreams, to feel your hand being held not out of obligation, but out of understanding, to feel wanted not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. You want to be known in your entirety. And yet, you push it away. Because real love is raw. It asks you to open the doors you've kept locked for years. It asks for the version of you that doesn't have all the answers, the one who sometimes cries for no reason, the one who still wonders if they're truly lovable. You learned early that love isn't always safe. Maybe the people you trusted most were inconsistent. Maybe you were loved conditional, only when you performed, pleased, or stayed quiet. Maybe love was loud one day and distant the next, so you stopped expecting it to last. When someone offers you care now, you question it. What do they want? What happens if I disappoint them? What if they change their mind? You don't ask these things out loud, but your heart holds them like quiet thunder. And even when things are going well, your nervous system stays on alert. You sabotage slowly. Maybe you pick fights over small things. Maybe you withdraw when you need closeness the most. Maybe you make jokes when something inside you is breaking. And then, when the person leaves or grows distant, it confirms the belief you didn't want to be true, that love never stays. It's not that you don't believe in love. You believe in it so much that its absence aches. But believing in love doesn't erase the fear of being undone by it. You've built a life around being composed, in control. Love threatens to unravel you, and part of you sees that as weakness. You want to be chosen, but not just for the mask you wear in public. You want someone to choose the version of you that's still healing, the one who overthinks late at night, the one who sometimes feels too much, the one who's still learning how to be soft again. You envy people who open easily, who laugh without hesitation, who speak their needs without shame. You wonder what it's like to fall in love without bracing for impact. But you've never had that luxury. Love, for you, has always come with a question mark. Sometimes, you look in the mirror and try to see yourself the way someone who truly loves you might. Would they flinch at your flaws? Would they see the fatigue in your eyes and still say, "I'm here"? Would they hold you on your worst day and not ask you to be better by morning? You fear being a burden. That's the secret most people never hear from you. Not that you don't want love, but that you don't believe you're worth the effort it takes to be loved long term. So you keep conversations light. You become what they want. You shrink your needs to fit into someone else's comfort. But that ache doesn't go away. It shows up in your silence, in the way you overwork, in the way you distract yourself with everything but what you really want. You say you're fine. But fine is the mask you wear when your heart is quietly screaming for connection. Love is not the enemy. Your heart knows this. It longs for communion, for softness, for the kind of love that doesn't just take, but gives back and sees through. But the walls you've built for protection have also become a prison, and you're growing tired of living behind them. You don't need to tear them down all at once. You just need to be honest with yourself first, that you're scared, that you want love but don't know how to receive it yet, that it's not weakness to want to be held. That being human means needing other humans. In the end, your healing doesn't begin with another person. It begins with the moment you stop rejecting yourself, when you stop apologizing for needing love, when you stop calling your tenderness a flaw, when you look at your reflection and say, even if no one else chooses me today, I will. Healing doesn't look like a straight line. It often looks like tension. The desire to lean in, followed by the urge to pull back. One foot in intimacy, the other planted in fear. You find yourself saying yes and no in the same breath, wanting to open but terrified of the cost. No one teaches you how to hold both things at once, the ache for closeness and the instinct for distance. So you fluctuate between emotional hunger and emotional withdrawal. You feel like you're too much and not enough, all at once. Some days you're overflowing with love to give. Other days, you can't even meet your own gaze. The truth is, love is not just an emotion, it's a mirror. It reflects everything you are willing to reveal and everything you're still hiding. It shows you the tenderness you crave, but also the wounds you pretend aren't there. And if you're not ready, that reflection can feel unbearable. So instead of facing it, you focus on flaws. You point out every reason they might leave. You replay conversations, looking for signs of disappointment. You build cases against people in your mind before they've had a chance to prove themselves. Not because you're cynical, but because you're afraid of being caught off guard. You call it caution, but often it's preemptive heartbreak. You're bracing for pain that hasn't even arrived. You sabotage good things just to avoid the shock of them ending. You pull away so you don't have to feel the sting of someone else doing it first. This is how you protect your heart, but it's also how you starve it. You think love means losing control, that to be loved deeply, you must surrender your independence. But love doesn't require you to vanish. Real love doesn't ask you to shrink or silence your voice. It invites you to be more fully yourself, with all the messy edges still intact. You learn to associate vulnerability with weakness, because somewhere along the line, your softness was mishandled. Maybe someone used your openness as ammunition. Maybe your tears were dismissed. Maybe your hope was mocked. So now, you armor up in logic, in strength, in solitude. But armor, while protective, is also heavy. It keeps things out, but it also keeps you in. It filters every experience through the lens of threat, and while it may keep your heart from breaking, it also keeps it from expanding. No love can reach a heart that's convinced it must stay hidden to survive. Sometimes you fantasize about being known fully, truly. You imagine someone who understands your silence, who sees through the smile you wear when you're falling apart, who doesn't just say, "I love you," but shows up when your light is dim and your words are few. You crave that kind of safety. And yet, when it starts to appear, you feel exposed. You second-guess their intentions. You wonder if they'll still love you when you're not impressive, when you're tired, when you're unsure. When the only thing you have to offer is your presence, you don't realize that your presence is the gift. You've told yourself for years that being low maintenance is admirable, that needing nothing makes you strong, that being easy to love means never asking for too much. But the truth is, intimacy requires needs. It requires trust. It requires the courage to say, "I want to be close, even when I'm scared." Your inner child still remembers what it felt like to be overlooked, to be too emotional, too loud, too quiet, too needy. So now, the adult version of you keeps shrinking, keeps performing, keeps trying to be lovable by being small. But love isn't earned by erasing yourself, it's experienced by being real. And you are real, even when you don't have it all together, even when your voice shakes, even when your thoughts spiral, even when your trust issues flare up. You are not less lovable because you struggle with closeness. You're simply someone who's been hurt and is learning to heal. Healing doesn't require perfection. It requires presence, a willingness to notice your patterns without judging them, to pause when you want to run, to stay when your instinct is to leave, to breathe through the discomfort of intimacy, to learn that safety can feel unfamiliar at first, but it doesn't mean it isn't safe. It's okay to ask yourself hard questions. Why does love feel threatening? Why do I downplay my desires? Why do I feel the urge to ghost someone kind? Why does silence make me anxious? Why do compliments feel like traps? These questions aren't signs that something's wrong with you. They're signs that something in you is waking up. You're beginning to notice how much of your life has been shaped by fear disguised as logic, how often you've chosen safety over joy, how many times you've rejected yourself before anyone else could, how you've mistaken loneliness for peace because you forgot what real peace feels like. But awareness is the beginning of freedom. You cannot change what you do not acknowledge. And now, you see it. The push and pull, the patterns, the stories you've told yourself about being unlovable, the way you've armored your heart while crying out for connection. Now that you see it, you can begin to rewrite it. You're not too broken. You're not too complicated. You're not unworthy. You're simply human with a heart that has been bruised and is learning how to beat freely again. And the very fact that you're still open to love, even after all you've been through, means there is hope alive in you. Sometimes, the deepest part of you believes that love must be earned, through achievement, through performance, through perfection. You replay every mistake like it was a courtroom testimony, convincing yourself that love is a reward, not a right. You keep showing up with a curated version of yourself, hoping someone will love the mask and, in doing so, maybe love the one behind it. But the mask only ensures you'll be admired for who you are not. It creates a barrier between your longing and your fulfillment. And eventually, that disconnect begins to ache. Because being seen and still feeling invisible is a kind of loneliness most people never speak about. You want to feel held without having to hold it together, to fall apart and not fear abandonment, to be loved not in spite of your fears, but through them, not because you're flawless, but because someone sees your struggle and chooses you anyway. That is the love you're learning to believe exists. And belief doesn't come all at once. It comes slowly through proof, through people who don't flinch when you show your shadows, through conversations that don't collapse under honesty, through moments when you're quiet and someone still leans in instead of pulling away. You begin to understand that love is not always fireworks. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's mundane, sometimes it's someone remembering how you like your tea, someone texting back, someone listening without waiting to speak. These small consistencies begin to rewrite the definition of love in your mind. But even then, you may resist it, not because it's wrong, but because it's unfamiliar. You've been conditioned to chase intensity, to confuse anxiety with passion. Calm feels boring. Safety feels foreign. You crave the rush of being chosen, and yet sabotage the ones who stay. This isn't self-sabotage in the way most people think. It's a nervous system responding to perceived danger. Your body doesn't yet know the difference between love and threat. It remembers how closeness once led to pain. And so, even peace feels like something to brace against. This is why you ghost people who are kind to you, why you withdraw when someone gets too close, why compliments feel suspicious, and support feels undeserved. It's not that you don't want love, it's that your system hasn't yet learned how to feel safe receiving it. But it can learn, slowly, gently, not through pressure, but through presence, through tiny acts of allowing, answering the message, receiving the compliment, staying in the conversation a little longer, letting someone show up for you without apologizing for needing it. You don't need to rush into vulnerability. You don't need to spill your whole story to feel connection. Sometimes healing starts with a single sentence, "I'm afraid to let you in, but I want to try." Sometimes the most honest form of intimacy is naming the fear that's in the room. You begin to realize that rejecting love was never about the people who tried to give it. It was about the parts of you that didn't feel worthy of receiving it. And those parts are still learning, still thawing, still inching toward the light like a flower that's just now realizing it can bloom again. The beauty of love is that it doesn't demand arrival, it welcomes the journey. It sits with you in the unraveling. It doesn't expect polished edges. It doesn't ask for certainty. Love whispers, "I'm here," not only when you're easy to hold, but especially when you're not. And perhaps the most healing thing you can do is let yourself be loved exactly as you are, unfinished, uncertain, unguarded, not later, not when you've healed more, not when you've figured everything out, but now, in this sacred imperfection. You are not behind, you are not failing, you are not too far gone. You are in the process of remembering what love is supposed to feel like, not controlling, not conditional, not withheld, but patient, present, and rooted in truth. This process might not look glamorous. It might look like crying in your car because someone saw through your walls. It might look like accepting help you don't think you deserve. It might look like choosing to stay when you want to run. But these moments are sacred. They are evidence that your heart is still alive. Letting yourself receive love is not weakness. It's the bravest thing you can do, because it means facing the lie that you are not enough. It means meeting your inner child where they were once abandoned. It means telling yourself, it's okay to be held now. You don't have to prove your worth. You don't have to chase what's already inside of you. You don't have to keep running from softness. You were made for connection. You were made to be seen, not just admired. Loved, not just tolerated. Safe, not just surviving. So if you find yourself rejecting love, pause. Don't shame yourself, get curious. Ask what part of you is scared. Ask where that fear first formed. Then, instead of pushing it away, meet it with compassion. Love it until it feels less alone. Because healing doesn't mean you'll never feel fear again. It means you'll stop letting fear drive the decisions of your heart. It means you'll recognize when you're pulling away and choose to stay present anyway. It means you'll stop abandoning yourself in the name of false protection. And in that presence, you'll find something stunning. Love doesn't just heal wounds, it teaches you how to live, fully, honestly, softly, and maybe for the first time, you'll realize that craving love and receiving it don't have to live on opposite ends of your story. Somewhere deep inside, you may have confused love with pain, because for so long, the people you reached for were also the ones who left you reaching. You learned to expect love to come with conditions, disappear without warning, or arrive too late. And so now, even genuine care feels suspect, like a trick with a painful ending. You've been taught that vulnerability is dangerous, that when you open your heart, it becomes a target, that love is a currency, and you only get it if you offer enough of yourself in return. This belief isn't your fault, it's protection, a system your soul developed to avoid being broken again. But protection that overcompensates eventually becomes a prison. You begin to lock the doors before anyone knocks. You anticipate betrayal where none exists. You read rejection into silence. And slowly, you build a fortress so strong that not even love can break through. The saddest part is that you may not even know you're doing it. You think you're being cautious. You call it discernment. You convince yourself that you're simply not ready for love. But beneath the logic lies a truth your heart hasn't yet spoken. You're terrified that if someone truly knew you, they wouldn't stay. And yet, you crave the very connection you push away. It's the paradox of the wounded soul, to long for intimacy while fearing exposure, to want to be held while bracing for abandonment. This inner tension wears on you. It creates fatigue that no amount of rest can resolve. You might feel irritable, restless, or distant and not know why. You might self-isolate, then feel hurt when no one reaches out. You might scroll endlessly through people's highlight reels and convince yourself that everyone else has love figured out. But all of it, the withdrawal, the resentment, the loneliness, it points to one thing: a heart that still wants to be known. This is not hopelessness. It's an invitation to finally turn toward yourself with the same compassion you offer others, to sit with the ache instead of running from it, to say, I see you, to the parts of you that still feel unworthy of love, not with shame, but with kindness. There's a healing that comes not from doing, but from being, from allowing space, from letting tears fall without rushing to wipe them away, from letting someone sit with you in the silence instead of filling it with explanations. Healing is not always about answers, it's about presence. The truth is, the love you crave may not arrive in the form you expect. It may not be dramatic or grandiose. It may come gently, quietly, in someone remembering your favorite song, in a message that simply says, "I'm thinking of you," in a moment of eye contact that says, "You matter." And when it comes, your old defenses will be tempted to rise. They'll whisper, "Don't trust this. It's too good. It's not real." But this time, instead of reacting, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is this danger? Is it unfamiliar safety? Because when all you've known is conditional love, unconditional kindness can feel disorienting. It may take time to recalibrate, to let your nervous system adjust, to believe, truly believe, that love can be both real and gentle. Don't rush the process. There's no timeline for softening, no deadline for trusting again. You are not behind just because others seem ahead. Your healing is not late. It's right on time for you. What matters most isn't how quickly you open up, it's that when you do so with intention, with awareness, with a readiness to receive, not just to perform, with the courage to let love in, even if your hands tremble. Every time you choose to stay open, even slightly, you're rewriting your story. Every time you choose connection over control, softness over suspicion, you reclaim a part of yourself that trauma tried to bury. You begin to remember who you were before you were taught to fear love. And in this remembering, something beautiful unfolds. You begin to see that love was never gone. It was waiting. Waiting for you to come home to yourself. Waiting for you to believe again. Waiting for you to realize that you are not broken. You are blooming. This journey isn't linear. There will be days you slip back into old habits, days you push people away, days you feel more armored than open. That's okay. Healing is not about perfection. It's about returning, again and again, to truth, to softness, to yourself. You don't need to be fearless to love. You just need to be willing. Willing to try, willing to feel, willing to stay when it's easier to run, willing to love yourself, even when your inner critic screams the opposite. And in that willingness, you'll discover something powerful. You are capable of deep connection. You are worthy of being known. You are enough not because of what you do, but because of who you are. Even now. Even still. Especially now. Sometimes, we think the answer to our emptiness is to become more lovable, more accomplished, more attractive, more agreeable. We try to polish the rough edges of who we are, hoping that maybe then someone will stay. Maybe then love won't leave. But this chase for worthiness only deepens the loneliness. Because real love isn't drawn to perfection. It's drawn to presence. You don't have to prove yourself to be loved. You don't have to shrink your voice, hide your needs, or tolerate what feels wrong. You don't have to be low maintenance to be chosen. You only have to be human, and in progress. Anyone who requires you to be smaller so they can stay was never offering love in the first place. When you believe you must earn love, you begin to resent yourself for being needy. But your needs aren't burdens, they're bridges. They tell you where connection is possible. They tell you what your heart longs for. Suppressing them doesn't make you strong. It makes you silent. And silence can feel safe, but it slowly suffocates your soul. There is no shame in wanting to be loved deeply. There is no weakness in longing for someone to hold your hand, to see your shadows and still say, "You're not too much." That desire is not desperation, it's design. You were made to connect. You were made to belong. But belonging must start with you, because if you keep rejecting yourself, you'll keep attracting people who do the same. You'll keep finding relationships where you give everything and feel nothing. You'll confuse sacrifice with intimacy, and you'll keep wondering why love never feels safe. Self-acceptance isn't some vague concept, it's a daily choice. It's choosing to stop abandoning yourself when you feel misunderstood. It's choosing to speak your truth even when your voice shakes. It's learning to be your own home, so you're not constantly seeking shelter in someone else. You may still fear being hurt again. That's normal. Fear doesn't vanish because you've grown, it simply becomes less loud. What matters is that you don't let it make your decisions. You don't let it convince you that hiding is safer than hoping. Because the truth is, love is always a risk. There is no way to guarantee you won't be disappointed. But what's the alternative? Numbing yourself to every chance at connection, building walls so high that even your own joy can't get in. That's not safety, that's isolation. You deserve more than survival. You deserve to experience a love that sees you, knows you, and stays. A love that doesn't ask you to be perfect to be present. A love that holds you when you unravel. A love that teaches you to trust again, not just in people, but in the idea that maybe you're not too broken to be held. And that love starts with how you speak to yourself, what you tell your reflection, the tone you use in your thoughts when you fail, the forgiveness you offer when you slip, the gentleness you allow when you feel fragile. These aren't just habits, they're healing. Every time you choose to soften toward yourself, you invite others to do the same. You show them how to treat you. You teach your nervous system that it's safe to be seen. That love doesn't always have to come at a cost. That intimacy isn't about performance, it's about presence. There's something profoundly brave about staying open when you've been wounded, about trying again when it didn't work last time, about believing in love even when you've only known pain. That kind of courage doesn't shout, it whispers. And it's enough. It's always been enough. So if you're listening right now and feel a knot in your chest, a lump in your throat, a whisper saying, "This is me," please hear this. You are not alone. You are not beyond healing. You are not destined to push love away forever. There is something tender and sacred unfolding in you. Let it happen. Let yourself be loved, not just by someone else, but by you. Because the moment you stop rejecting yourself is the moment love stops feeling like something to fear and starts feeling like something to welcome. You are worthy of that welcome. You are worthy of rest. You are worthy of love that stays. Not someday. Today. Now. Right here. And if this message spoke to you, if you felt seen, understood, or comforted in any way, I invite you to do 3 simple things. Like this video, share it with someone who needs this message, and subscribe to this channel for more content that meets you in the quiet corners of your soul. You deserve content that doesn't just entertain you but heals you. We're building a space here for deep thinkers, sensitive hearts, and spiritual wanderers. And I'd be honored if you joined the journey.